Hello and welcome to the Bakken Magazine's 2016 Editorial Outlook and Editorial Calendar Preview. My name is Luke Giever and I'm the editor of the publication. I'm joined today by John Nelson, Marketing and Sales Director. Today's webinar will give you an updated look at the reach and efforts of the magazine, along with a few updates and changes we have for 2016. To start today's webinar, we're going to go through the audience breakdown and how it's been changed and updated from 2015 to 2016, along with our monthly circulation numbers. We'll also talk briefly about some of our Bakken news coverage that we have done in the past and we have planned for the future. John Nelson will also talk about our Bakken Magazine's webinar series that we are ramping up in 2016 as well. And then we'll get into some of the Outlook and editorial calendar highlights that we have planned for 2016. With that, I'd like to kick it over to John Nelson before I provide the Outlook and calendar preview later on in the webinar. John?
Thank you, Luke, and I appreciate everyone taking the time to be on today's webinar. So through Luke and his team's dedication to working and writing strong stories, the Bakken Magazine has quickly become the industry's most recognizable publication and offers you the best opportunity to gain mass exposure by reaching producers, completion companies, policymakers, and other professionals focused on the Bakken shale play. Each issue of the Bakken Magazine is mailed to 7,500 oil professionals who are focused on doing business inside the Bakken shale play. And we know from a recent survey of our readers that the Bakken Magazine has a readership rate of 2.6 people per issue. So when we use those numbers, each issue of the Bakken Magazine is read at a minimum of 19,500 times by people looking to buy new products and learn about the latest technologies and policies in the industry. And what we find even more impressive is that what's even more impressive is that we send copies of our magazine to specific oil producers who are located in and outside the Bakken region. And in addition to the producers who receive a copy of the magazine, we mail the Bakken Magazine to every attendee of the Bakken Conference and Expo, as well as distribute it at a number of important industry events that Luke's going to cover here in a few moments. So, as you can see on the slide here, the majority of our readers are inside the U.S., and the largest category of our readership base consists of people who are CEOs, presidents, and owners of equipment and service companies at 21%, with the second largest category being petroleum, oil, and gas execs at 18%. So, and that's based on our circulation for each issue. The graph also shows the next types of companies who are subscribers. They're consultants, contractors, transportation companies, engineers, technology providers, academics, officials in the government and military, and so on. So I really want to emphasize this point, and if there's one takeaway from my section of this presentation, this is the one point I want to make sure is communicated. By purchasing advertising in the Bakken Magazine, you can be assured that you are reaching the right people who are doing business in the Bakken shale play. So this is a colorful slide, but I'm excited to discuss it because it contains the data from our third-party research that we've recently done on the Bakken Magazine's readership base. And we also had the luxury of having our in-house art department make the data look sharp on the slide. So the research was performed by a company called Signet Research, and they're a firm located on the East Coast, and some of you may have even filled out the survey. So what did the research say about our readership? Of those who completed the online survey, 27% were in sales, marketing, or business development, with 25% of the readership being the top decision maker listed as president, CEO, owner, and so on. Each reader spends on average 45 minutes per issue, and as I mentioned earlier, each copy of the Bakken Magazine is read 2.6 times, bringing the readership of each issue to 19,500. 45% of our readers are involved in recommending initiating, or purchasing products or services. And even more important is the fact that 69% of our readers took action based on the ads they viewed in the Bakken magazine. Readers visited the advertiser's website, discussed a product or service, recommended or made a purchase based on the ad they saw in the Bakken magazine. And one last note is that 70% of the Bakken magazine readers agree that advertisements educate and are an important part of the publication. So if you've been on the fence about advertising in the Bakken magazine, hopefully this third-party data will give you more assurance that advertising here is the right choice. And so while you're looking at this slide, because there's a lot to take in, one point that I believe many of you would find extremely beneficial is that we have an outstanding art department that helps produce this magazine. And when you purchase an advertisement with the Bakken magazine, you gain access to the art department to help you design and create your advertisements free of charge. It can be a huge cost savings to you, the advertiser, and you know, a lot of the times that point goes under the radar, so I definitely wanted to bring that up. So here we're looking at our online stats on thebakken.com, and the Bakken magazine's web presence grew leaps and bounds this past year, and it's through the ongoing posting of our original stories to the website, search engine optimization strategies, the digital issue of our magazine, and blogs. We have increased our traffic to the numbers you see before you on this slide. And I do want to note that these numbers are based on Google Analytics from July 2014 to July 2015. And we are now seeing our traffic counts on thebakken.com at an impressive 51,000 page views or impressions per month and 29,000 visits per month. We are extremely happy to report these numbers because we saw an outstanding 35% increase in website visits from the previous year. And so more and more people are looking to the Bakken magazine and BakkenMagazine.com to find out what is happening in not only the Bakken shale play, but also other shale plays and the new technologies driving efficiencies associated with shale oil extraction and production. So that's great that I'm sharing all these stats, but what does that mean to you as an advertiser? Well, it means that when you purchase online advertising on thebakken.com, more people will view your ad because impressions to our website have increased. Ultimately, the goal is to generate clicks to your website, have you gain more business, and increase sales. So here we're looking at some demographic information from thebakken.com, and we have visitors on our website from around the U.S. as the graphic shows here. Clearly our top visitors are from North Dakota. However, we see a large number of visitors from Texas, which is now nearly as many as North Dakota. We also have a large number of visitors from California, Minnesota, and Colorado. So if you're looking to reach both producers and professionals focused on the Bakken region and shale oil, thebakken.com and online advertising is a great option for you. And once again, what's even more important is that the graphic demonstrates that these executives are located throughout the U.S., not just North Dakota. And so I also want to make a quick note that online advertising, if you want to take advantage of these stats that were in this traffic that we're going over in this presentation, online advertising starts as low as $109 per month. You can get a rectangle for $109 and have your ad posted on our site. Now we're going to move on to our social network slide. And you're probably wondering why are we talking about our social networks here? But what we want to do is, what we're demonstrating is that we go out of our way to build our networks on the social media sites you see in front of you. So we have Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Google Plus, and so on. So why do we build out these networks? We build these networks out in these audiences because we post every original story that Luke and his team write on these sites. And through Google Analytics, we can see that people are clicking on these sites and coming to thebakken.com to read the story. And so as an advertiser, that's important because you can see that we are taking active measures to reach out and bring people back to our website via our social networks. And what that ultimately does is it puts more people in front of your ad, and hopefully they'll be clicking on it and going to your website. So we want to definitely make sure you're aware that we do have a strong social media. We have social media networks and a social media strategy. Sponsorships for the Bakken Magazine's webinar series are a great advertising opportunity for companies that are looking to engage a specific audience for 90 minutes at a time and generate leads. Attendance for these webinars has been strong because these events are content-driven and provide valuable information to the attendees provided from our industry expert panelists. So as a sponsor, you'll have your logo with URL listed on all of the emails that are sent out promoting the webinar, and it's roughly 150,000 to 200,000. You'll also be listed on the registration page on the Bakken Magazine's website. You'll be listed on all online advertisements that are on the Bakken.com. You'll be on weekly e-newsletter ads for the webinar, and you'll be placed on our on-demand webinar section of the Bakken Magazine. Since the launch of our webinar series, we've had nearly 16,000 professionals register and have averaged roughly 250 attendees per webinar. So without a doubt, because we've done so many of these, we are extremely confident that this is one of the best ways you can identify companies and people interested in a specific topic within the shale oil industry. And most importantly, as I mentioned, this is a lead generation tool. So in addition to all the promotional benefits I listed, as the main sponsor, the diamond level sponsor of our webinars, we physically give you the contact information of all the attendees and registrants of the webinar, email included. So to give you an example, we did a webinar titled Rail Moving Forward, Risk Management in 111 Tank Cars, sponsored by Northern Plains Rail Services. Many of you may have even seen the email for it or been on that webinar. And because Northern Plains Rail Services was the sponsor, they received all the benefits of advertising we just discussed, and they also received all the contact information on all of the 600 registrants. So again, if you're looking to generate leads and advertising and gain advertising with the Bakken Magazine and the Bakken.com, webinar sponsorship is an outstanding opportunity for you. We also have our webinar packages. So when we're looking at our webinar, so here's some of the packages that you can take advantage of. We have our Diamond Webinar Sponsorship Package, which starts at $9,500. And again, you get all the contact information. You can also see who was more interested during the webinar, who was engaged the longest and earliest and asked questions. You'll also have a speaking opportunity on the webinar. So if you say, hey, we want to talk about this specific topic, whether it's flaring or transportation, whatever that may be, we can help design that webinar, and you can work with Luke and his team, and we can put something together that makes sense for you. You'll also receive some top placement of the logo, top placement on the URL Magazine website. You'll have a 2-minute commercial and some dedicated slides, as well as ongoing leads generated from our on-demand section of the Bakken Magazine. And in essence, that's where the magazine, when we are finished with the webinar, we post it online on the BakkenMagazine.com's website, and people can register to see that webinar again, and you'll gain those contacts as well. We also have a smaller sponsorship, less expensive. We have the Gold Webinar sponsorship package, and that basically includes everything you see in the Diamond minus gaining the leads. So I definitely would hope you take advantage of that in 2016. And if you are interested in more information about our webinars, please contact Bob or Austin at our office. And with that, I'd like to hand it over to Luke Giever, editor of the Bakken Magazine.
Thanks, John. I think it's clear to see after listening to John talk and go through the magazine that it's clear we've internally invested in our product much like many of you on the webinar have. Now, moving to the editorial outlook and themes, we could certainly talk about this for the next week, but we'll try and condense it down into a few minutes here. There's many ways to describe 2016 Bakken activity. Our team has thought about it and written about it many different ways, and I think we believe the best description for this world-class shale play is really summed up like this. 2016 is going to be a transformative year. Oil prices, in essence, are forcing the oil patch to transform. To maintain production, bottom lines, and operational activities, oil prices have forced the entire industry to rethink and retool its approaches to working and succeeding in the Bakken. $100 oil and near 200 rig counts are certainly nowhere in sight for the foreseeable future. But as we've all come to learn, there are these key themes we need to remember throughout the rest of the year and in 2016. And one of those is that the oil and gas is there. It's in the ground, and by now we know how to get it. In 2016, an incredible amount of oil field and infrastructure development activity will still take place regardless of oil price. We all need to remember that when we read another OPEC update or headline on why oil will or won't rise in price. As one commercial developer told us earlier this year, when oil prices were lower than they are now even, they said, and I quote, "I think there is such an imbalance in the marketplace between public infrastructure and other things that need to be done, and a lot of people don't understand the amount of work that still needs to be completed," end quote. On the production side, we know 2016 will look like no other year in the Bakken's recent past, but there will still be more than 1 million barrels of oil produced every day. I can remember last summer traveling out west to go to a 1 million barrel celebration and how big of a deal that was to the industry, and now we're still above that mark, and there is not as much positivity around that mark as there was at one time. But that's another thing. One of those key things to remember for all of us is that production in North Dakota for the foreseeable future will still be in that 1 million barrel per day range. Another one of those key terms that we have to understand in the coming year is that idea of lower for longer. In essence, investors, operators, producers, energy service firms by now understand that oil prices and activity in some realms of the oil field will be happening at a lower rate or will be priced at a lower price for a longer period of time, as opposed to a sort of a short-term oil price dip or oil activity dip. And that's important because it guides a lot of the decisions that are made in producing oil and moving it and marketing it, etc. And we've done many stories yet the last 2 months about some activities that are happening because of low oil prices. One of our recent stories was based on perspective from Wall Street and investor analysts, and that was the term they wanted to convey, was that lower for longer is a reality, but it's good that people understand that term is there and that it's being used in the decision-making process. It's not stopping decisions from being made or for activity from taking place. It's just part of the overall decision-making process now. In regards to rig counts, as we've written about at length, they're not quite the indicator of oil field productivity or activity that they once were. We'll continue to cover that in 2016 and write about the intricacies of rig counts and what they mean to the Bakken. Completion designs, they improve nearly every quarter, and they really show that the industry is constantly improving the ways at which it retrieves oil, both in efficiency and on the exciting side, overall volume. In 2016, we will continue to focus on the big topics like rig count fluctuations and what the fluctuation truly means. We will also continue recovering trends in completions, as I just mentioned. But regional and federal policies will continue to be a staple of our work for the magazine. And I say we'll continue to cover those things because there's a handful of federal policies, and regional policies that are still very important and that will dictate some of the activity in the Bakken in 2016. The political scene, however, just like the fracking schedule for next year, it will be difficult to predict, but most certainly will always be must-read material. And this is important. Although OPEC doesn't typically call our team back, we are still trying for a story with OPEC, so hopefully we'll get something with them. Now, as you'll see on the following slides, we've once again placed a major emphasis on bonus distribution of our publication and getting that magazine to some of the major industry events happening throughout the year. It's nice for us having the magazines at the events we're at as well, so we can point to stories and cite sources from different perspectives when people ask us questions about oil prices or rig counts or new completions designs. New for 2016, which I'm excited to talk about today, is the rollout of a new strategy that we're deploying designed to showcase the reality of the Bakken that activity will remain strong next year. We are putting an issue-by-issue focus on the themes and topics that have a specific context to the state of the Bakken, and this is important, regardless of oil price. Let me explain. To start the year, we're producing an issue focused on oilfield technology. We're constantly receiving information from technology entities informing us of new offerings or updates to existing technology options. The idea that amidst challenges there are always opportunities certainly applies to this theme. Our goal is to talk about the entry avenues for new technology into the Bakken and the greater oil and gas industry, along with a handful of other relevant products used on the well site, the truck, pipeline, or any other relevant oil field location. What's exciting for our team about this topic is it gives us the opportunity to explore and share the possible tech offerings that will push the industry forward, and as I said at the outset, really mark 2016 as a transformative year for the Bakken. One of the themes we've written about throughout this year is that of new technology bred from oil industry downtime. Historically, when oil prices have been low and innovation was needed, tech was created and deployed. A good example of that is a story we followed up on and provided an update on regarding the California-based pump provider. Schlumberger, largest oil field service in the world, recently purchased their technology, and that technology could drastically change the way pressure pumping units look like and operate in the Bakken. That particular pump was tested over a 6-month period in the Bakken with Liberty Oilfield Services, a well-respected and well-known firm for its willingness to try new things in the Bakken. And those are the type of stories we're going to pursue and provide in the coming year. The next theme, services and logistics, is always important. The marketplace for energy service firms or logistics providers is both crowded and competitive, maybe so now than ever before. During a time when service is still crucial to success in the Bakken, we wanted to take a look at and provide input on some of the more unique, most respected firms or operational strategies in the industry. The hope is to showcase how the oil field is changing from a service standpoint and to provide readers with an understanding of what it will take to succeed in the Bakken during this low oil price environment. We'll also look at storage and movement of Bakken crude, gas, or products. Another example of this is from a recent story we did with quite a vague title, but something that really is starting to show the change in the Bakken, and that was a feature story from one of our writers, Patrick Miller, called The Bakken's New Direction. And for a day and a half, Patrick toured the Bakken with a member of an energy service firm company, and they went to different well sites, and they talked about and saw firsthand how some of the operational strategies have changed, why they've changed, and why they've worked. And those are the type of stories we'll continue next year. In May and June, we're going to talk about safety and remediation. As the thematic description iterates, the theme of safety and remediation is a constant in the industry, regardless of the price of oil. When we talk with firms of any size, the emphasis put on safety is always apparent, and until now, the services, strategies, and protocols used to meet the safety goals of the industry has not been written about at length. Along with remediation efforts, another topic that will continue to remain relevant regardless of oil price, we are devoting an entire issue to these themes to give readers a sense of what has been done, what can be done, and what will be done to continue improving both safety and remediation practices. Following that important issue, we're going to move to flaring. In the hottest months, we've picked one of the hottest issues for our coverage plans. The reason is simple. Production dynamics may have changed again in the Bakken due to high grading and companies moving to their core acreage. And what we thought we understood of gas capture and utilization in the Bakken last year, what we predicted, what we set for goals and thought we could meet, are changing in 2016. Many of the same issues that we wrote about in 2015, infrastructure development, the uniqueness of the associated gas produced from a Bakken well, will still be present in 2016 due to what we just talked about, high grading efforts and production strategies necessitated by low oil price. Thanks to the innovative nature of Bakken tech makers and designers, along with the foresight of policymakers, the amount of gas captured and utilized every month is showing a lot of positive change. But from a topical standpoint, it's still incredibly important to understanding what's happening in the Bakken. And this issue will really explain the state of flaring gas utilization in the Bakken. In early fall, we're going to also add a new theme that we haven't devoted as much time as we will to this year. North Dakota's portion of the Wilson Basin is producing at or near those record levels it was a few months ago. There are more wells producing now than ever before, and even if new well drilling stopped for the foreseeable future, production would remain in the 1 million barrel per day range for roughly 2 years. Combine that with the reality that regardless of the decline curve of a well, well sites need to be monitored and maintained, and this topic was a no-brainer for us in choosing oil price independent themes. For this issue, we'll also look at the ways in which other sites or equipment is monitored and maintained to showcase what it takes to keep the Bakken running smoothly. And to end the year, we're looking back and forward at the infrastructure of the Bakken. By the end of 2016, another historic construction season will have commenced. In an effort to really highlight the reality of just how much infrastructure is still needed, even after the 2016 season, our team will be issuing a 2016 construction review along with a forecast for 2017. And I can say this with certainty, roughly more than 12 months in advance. We can already see that that report is going to be very long. Now with that, as we finish up today, I'm certainly happy to take questions or provide a more detailed perspective on 2016 based on what we've seen and what we're working on. To do so, I can take questions through the webinar, follow up after the webinar, or even set up a time to talk with anyone on the webinar in the coming days. We're always willing to talk and share the things that we're covering and hearing about in the industry. Today's webinar was sponsored by the Bakken Conference and Expo. It's a unique Bakken event that's put on by our magazine team and industry members. And now with that, I'd like to kick it back to Mr. John Nelson.
All right, thanks, Luke. Appreciate your overview of what we get to look forward to reading in the Bakken magazine in 2016. You know, speaking of upcoming events, we do have some events coming up here that are produced by BBI International. We have next week, if the advanced biofuels industry is of interest to you, or you're looking to get involved in that industry or just check it out, we have the National Advanced Biofuels Conference and Expo taking place in Omaha next week. So I would encourage you to check that out online and see if that's a fit for you. We also have UAS Magazine's 2016 Editorial Outlook webinar coming up, so if you're interested in unmanned air systems, that would be of interest to you, and that's coming up November 18th, and that'll be free of charge, and you'll hear from Luke Giever on that as well. He's the editor of UAS Magazine. We also have Pellet Mill Magazine. So if you're looking to get involved in the pellet industry or biomass industry, a lot of you listening will have some of that crossover of working in these other energy sectors. I would definitely ask that you jump on to the Pellet Mill Magazine's Editorial Outlook webinar, and that will be put on by Tim Ports, who is the executive editor of Pellet Mill Magazine, and that's November 18th as well. We also have the Bakken Conference and Expo obviously coming up, as he mentioned, and that'll be in July 25th through the 27th. So when we're looking at, for those of you, as we mentioned earlier, for those of you who stayed on, we do have an exclusive discount for you. What we want to offer you by participating today is we want to give you a 35% discount on one full-page print advertisement, and that offer expires January 1st. So if you're looking to try the Bakken magazine for the first time, or want to get involved, or have a print ad in the Bakken magazine, we'll offer you a 35% discount for listening today. And you can contact either Bob Brown or Austin Motz at our office at the number below, and we'll be more than happy to help you. Thanks again for being on today's webinar, and hopefully this webinar demonstrated that the Bakken magazine is extremely committed to supporting the industry, and we hope you'll choose to engage the shale oil audience via the Bakken magazine in 2016. So thanks again, and have a great day.